Hello, my name is Steve Power and I'm a product specialist here at Pegasus Software. My aim over the next 30 minutes or so is to give you an overview of the Pegasus payroll, to show you how quick and easy it is to run the payroll and produce the payslips, as well as to show you some of the many other features that are provided as standard within this payroll program. The Pegasus payroll is recognised by HMRC under their PAYE recognition scheme. It's multi-company. It provides payment frequencies of weekly, 2-weekly, 4-weekly or monthly, and provides full handling of the tax and national insurance, together with fully automated P32 processing. It is possible to define up to 999 payment types and 999 deduction types. You can also define employee profiles so that it allows you to mix and match payment and deduction types under a profile for quick assignment to employees. Payment methods of cash, cheque, backs and auto-pay are supported. The payroll also handles statutory sick pay, statutory maternity pay, statutory adoption pay, as well as statutory paternity pay and shared parental pay. Included as standard are RTI and auto-enrolment handling, together with student loans and attachment orders. The system handles multiple pension schemes. The contribution can either be by a variable percentage or a fixed value, and you can decide whether the employee, employer or both make contributions to the pension scheme. The payroll can be run standalone or integrated into Opera 3 accounting system for nominal ledger, cash book and costing analysis. Okay, let's go and have a look at the software. I'm going into this payroll and HR option here, and first let's go and have a look at the setup of the system. You'll notice that we have multiple groups. Here, for instance, I have a monthly group and a weekly group, but it could be that I might set it up by department. So I might have a group which says the sales group, the shop floor, admin, customer services, the directors, and so on and so on and so on. It allows you to go through and set up 36 groups per company within the system itself. Let me log into the monthly group. As we can see here, the system allows you to define important information such as the company name, what is my PAYE reference, and various other details associated with this particular company. Also, what is the current tax year for this particular company. It allows you to go through and define your back system. So you can set up the system to link to your particular backs program that you use. In my case, I've set mine up to be NatWest Payaway. Notice also we have this option here for P32 consolidation. If you're running multiple companies but they have the same PAYE reference, maybe one company is for the employees and the second company is for the directors, you can actually consolidate this P32 information together. Let's go and have a look at the P32 processing form. Within the P32 processing form, that consolidation is achieved by running this option here, Consolidate P32 across payrolls. And this will bring in the P32 information from the other company and bind it together with the data that we see here. As you can see, this P32 processing form, it contains all of the payment information regarding your payroll. We can see that my current period is period 12, which is from the 6th of March to the 5th of April. And I can see that I've run my payrolls up to week 52. Notice all the information that is stored here. Things like income tax, student loan, national insurance. And if we go across the columns, we can see all of this information. And at the end, we can see the balance that is outstanding to HMRC, plus the balance that has been paid in this particular payroll period. Let's mark a payment on the record. So if I select this option here, payment, it allows me to go through and specify the date range. So I'm paying from the 6th of April 15 to the 5th of May 15. It shows me the total of the income tax, national insurance and balance outstanding. It allows me to specify the payment date and it suggests the payment that is due to HMRC. Let me put in my backs reference. And here we can see that it's making that payment on that particular payment date. If I save this away And we now go and have a look at the P32 processing form for that date. We can see the amount paid, the balance outstanding, and the payment date. And if we look at the bottom of the form, we can see the overall totals that are due to be paid, the balances that are outstanding. The system also allows me to go through and reclaim the employment allowance. If I select this option here, employment allowance, it shows me the periods that are due and it shows me the amount that is claimed. Remember, in the 2016-17 tax year, this can be up to £3,000. This P32 processing form can be tailored. So for instance, if I want to look at a concise view, then I can reduce down the column widths just to show me the overall totals that are there. Or I can go through and hide the detail. So in this case, it is just showing me the monthly totals without that detail. If I reinstate it, then I can see the individual week, month details. So this P32 processing form can be very flexible in the way you view it. Indeed, you can look at the previous years as well. If you want to look at the data contained in last year's payroll, then we simply select this previous year's information. And it takes me back to that particular year. Let's go back into the set options for this monthly group and let's look at page 2. Notice we can set this flag here in the system to allow us to transact full SMP processing, so controlling statutory maternity pay. I can also tick this flag here for full statutory sick pay processing. These are options which you can turn on and off. The control is down to the individual user. It also allows us to go through and identify if we want to use advanced pension processing, in which case it will allow us to set up multiple pension schemes. And if we are at or have passed our staging date, we can turn on auto-enrolment processing. This will allow the system to assess our workforce and allow workers to be auto-enrolled into workplace pension schemes. Let's go and have a look at the pension schemes. Here are a list of the pension schemes that are in place for this particular company. Let's have a look at one of those. In this example, let's have a look at Nest. Here, for instance, I can see I'm using Nest and I've set that up as a group personal pension scheme. There are, however, a range of other types that I could be using. I have also set this to say that I'm using it for auto-enrolment, and it allows me to define the contribution levels. In this example, it's 1% from the employer, 1% from the employee. I can do it as a percentage, but I can also do it as an explicit value. So I can turn on this flag here for the value, and I can therefore put in the employer value and the employee's value. I can set the scheme limits. What are the minimum contributions per period? What are the maximum contributions per year? And it also allows me to go through and define on what earnings is it based. Is it based upon all the pensionable earnings? Is it based on the auto-enrolment thresholds? Or is it custom? In which case I can define the upper and lower limits. In my example here, I'm going to base it on the auto-enrolment thresholds. I can also turn this flag on here, which allows me to go through and base it upon all of the pensionable pay elements. If I turn that flag off, then I can go through and select the individual payment types. So in which case I might base it on basic pay, overtime and commission, and leave out the rest of the pay elements that are on there. So you can see there's a level of flexibility here. I'm using Nest Pensions to satisfy my auto-enrolment duties. If I select this export file type, I can tell the system that I want to electronically transfer information to the Nest Pensions Corporation. This electronic communication is also available for linking into Now Pensions. If we hop back into the set options again and have a look at the third page, here it allows me to define the pay period. Mine is set to monthly, but equally this could be weekly, 2 weekly or 4 weekly. It allows me to go and define the payment method, which can be autopay, backs, cheque or cash, and it allows me to define the length of time I want to keep transactions for. In my example here, I'm saying that I want to keep the payslip images for 6 months. It also allows me to go through and define holiday pay. If this was, for instance, a weekly payroll, I might set it to calculate the average pay over the past 13 weeks and use that for the basis of calculating the holiday pay. If we look at the tax and NI tables, here we can see that table 1 is effective from the 6th of the 4th, 2015. And it shows me the bandwidths associated with income tax for that particular year. If I look at the employers and the employees NI, then I can see the bandwidths associated with that. If I flip to table 2, I can see the effective date here is from the 6th of the 4th, 2016. And therefore it shows me the tax rates associated with that particular tax year, as well as the employers and the employees NI bandwidths. It also allows you to go through and set up the SSP, as well as the other statutory payments. Notice that it also handles the Scottish rate of income tax that came into force from April 2016 for people whose main residence is in Scotland. The Scottish Parliament has tax raising powers, in which case if those differ from the rest of the UK, then this form allows you to go through and define those Scottish specific tax rates. Also under this utilities option, it allows you to go through and define whether you want to link into the nominal ledger. So if my system is set to link to the Opera 3 accounting system, then I can update both the nominal ledger and I can update the cash book. I can, however, run the payroll completely standalone without linking into the Opera 3 accounting system. Let's now have a look at the payment profiles. This is where we go through and define the pay elements that build up the pay for the individuals. In my example here, I've got things such as basic pay, overtime, expenses, commission, and a whole range of other items that build up to pay. If we look at the basic pay, for instance, you can see that we can define it as taxable, NIable, pensionable. Can attachment orders be linked to this particular payment type? If so, I tick this item here. Is it used for auto-enrolment assessment? If we go and have a look at the next item, which is overtime, here we can see we've got an option to print if zero. I might want to encourage employees to take overtime, in which case I might want to print this overtime pay element on their pay slips, even if they're not receiving overtime payment in this particular pay period. And of course the reverse side of this is the deduction profiles. These are the various elements that I'm taking off salary for individuals. So for instance, I've got things like pension deductions, student loan repayments, and so on and so forth. If we look at, for instance, this first item on here, we can see that this has been set up as an employee's pension deduction type, and I've ticked this item here, deduct before tax. Therefore, it allows me to go through and do the deduction of this item before I do the tax calculation, which of course is exactly what I want to do for a pension deduction. If we look at other items on here, so for instance, here we can see we've got an attachment order. For attachment orders, there's a whole range of different types of attachment order that I can go through and set up. So the system allows you to go through and define these different types of deductions. It also allows us to go through and set up an employee profile. This allows us to group a number of employees together, but it also allows us to go through for that group of employees to identify which pay elements and which deduction elements link to that particular group. Here, for instance, we have the directors group, and they are flagged as a director, and they have a company car. If I go on to the next group, here we can see their management. They're not director status, but they do have a company car. If I go on to the next group, here we can see their staff. They have neither director status or a company car. It allows me to go through and define the pay elements. So here's the universe of pay elements. However, for the staff group, they only have basic pay, overtime, commission, and so on. If I look at the deduction side, it allows me to define which deduction types are applicable to this group. When I set up a new employee and assign them an employee profile, it will inherit these payments and these deductions, making it quicker to create those employees. Okay, let's go through and let's create a new employee. I'm going to say this employee belongs to the monthly group, and I'm going to add a new employee in here. What's the employee reference? Belongs to the monthly group. Surname, let's say the surname is Jones. Forename's Sarah. Title Ms. Department, let's say Sarah belongs to the sales team, and she's using the payment profile of the management team. What was her start date? What was her date of birth? And notice it's telling us the age for this particular individual. Let me set the gender to be female and the NI number to be, and let's save that away. It then asks me about the BACS information, so which bank account number, bank reference, and the address information. And the postcode. Is this individual subject to a student loan? I'm going to say yes, this individual is paying the student loan plan 1 off. And I'm going to save this information away. And on the additional information tab, it allows me to go through and record the normal hours worked. This is required on the RTI submission through to HMRC. What is the P45 status? I'm going to say that no P45 was provided, and the starter declaration was that this is Sarah's only job. And I'm going to save that away. Notice it's telling me here that Sarah's tax code is that of an emergency tax code on a week 1, month 1 basis. Now it's showing me the pay elements to build up to the salary for Sarah. So I'm going to say that there's a permanent value of £2,000 a month. I can set up temporary values. In this case for expenses, I'm going to say that the temporary value for Sarah's expenses this month was £50. And what this basically means is that when we run the payroll, this temporary value of £50 for expenses this month will be calculated. I could also set up units and rates. So if this person was hourly paid, then I could put the rate per hour and I could put the normal hours worked. So it might be that the normal units are 37.5 hours a week at £10 per hour, in which case I'd enter those figures here. If we look at the deductions tab, I can see the standard sort of deductions that are being taken from Sarah's salary. I'm going to say OK to this. Now I've set up this employee on the system. I can add a picture. So there's the snapshot for Sarah. I can also go through and identify any holidays that Sarah has taken. Or if Sarah becomes a leaver, I can mark the date that Sarah left this organisation. Let's, however, run through and do a calculate. It's telling me that Sarah is the start of this period. Yes, I know that. It's then going through, working out the calculation, the build up to pay, the deductions that are coming through, showing the net pay for Sarah. Now, of course, running the payroll calculation individually would be very time consuming. So what we have here is an option that allows us to do the calculation in bulk. If I select the monthly group, it's showing me the date range that it wants to do the payroll calculation for. I'm going to let the calculation run through, and then I'm going to go through and print out the exceptions report. Here we can see, for instance, that Sarah Jones has been marked as a start of this period. We can also see that Mr. Mason should have an NI code of C because he is over retirement age, so we should not be deducting NI from Mr. Mason. If we look at the summary reports, this period summary, here we can see, for instance, there's Sarah Jones. The gross pay was £2,000 minus the tax and the national insurance and other deductions, which means the net pay is going to be £1,618. And we can also see that, for instance, student loan has been deducted from Sarah's payment calculation there. I can also go through and print the pay slips. If I select the monthly group, I have the choice of producing printed pay slips, email pay slips, or publish them to the web so employees can use Payroll Self Service to view their pay slips online. In my example here, I'm going to produce the printed and the web pay slips. Here I'm going to send the web pay slips to the screen so I can look at them. And here we have Paul Sharples. We can see the basic pay. We can see that salary sacrifice has been applied to the pension and the childcare vouchers, giving the total payment minus the tax and the national insurance. Then I can see the net pay is shown here. If I'm using paper pay slips, then there can be a range of different designs depending on the one that suits my particular company. If I choose a pre-printed paper design and publish it through to the screen, here I can see the pay slip for Sarah Jones. The basic pay plus the expenses, giving the total in this period, minus the tax and national insurance and the student loan, giving me the payment of £1,618 to Sarah. I can also go through and pay these individuals. Let's produce the backs list. This is for the monthly group. I'll send this report through to the screen. And here are all the individuals that are going to get paid via backs this month. It has now produced the backs file. I can also go through and transmit that file through to the bank by selecting this option here. For those that are paid by cheque, I can generate the cheque output. Again, I'm selecting the monthly group. What is the first cheque number? And I'll send that cheque through to this file print. And here are the cheques to each of these individuals. Remember, before you pay your employees, you need to submit an RTI submission through to HMRC. Here you can see that we can produce the FPS, we can also produce the EPS, and notice as well there's also an E-No verification request that can be sent from the Opera 3 payroll. HMRC will reply in the normal way and will tell you if the number is correct or not, and will provide you with NI numbers if you don't have one. Okay, let's go through and let's create the FPS for the payroll that we've just run. So for the monthly group, we're going to create a regular FPS. If we're sending this in late, we can specify the late reason reporting code. I'm going to create a detailed report, and here it's showing me the total number of starters this period, total number of current employees, and it shows me the tax, the national insurance and the student loans that are on this FPS. I'm going to send this detailed report through to screen, and it shows me here, for instance, we can see Sarah Jones, we can see the tax, national insurance, employers, employees, national insurance and the student loans that are going through. And if we go to the next page, we can see the overall totals that are on this particular FPS. If we're happy with this information, then it will allow us to submit this through to HMRC using the online filing manager. It has now created this FPS file for the company that I've just selected, and it now allows me to go through and submit this through to HMRC. So I'm selecting the monthly report, I'm putting in the password to the gateway, confirming the password, and then I could submit this through to HMRC. Now, if we go back into the P32 processing form and we go down to period 52, we can see that these figures have been updated by the values of the payroll that we've just run. And if we go across the columns, we can see the total payment that is now outstanding through to HMRC. If I take the option to update the payroll for this particular period, I'm going to update it. It's now asking me here, do I want to update these figures? If I say take this option yes to do this, it just confirms that I've sent the RTI submissions through to HMRC, which is what I have done. What will basically happen here is it will update the to-date figures, it saves away the payslip images, it updates the history, and then it sets the system ready to process the payroll in the next period. If we now go into the processing form, and we look at the history for Sarah, we can see what Sarah has been paid in this particular period, and we can drill down into the payslip image for Sarah. Okay, let's have a look at statutory maternity pay and see how easy it is to run within Opera 3. Wendy Turner has just notified us that she is pregnant and is intending to take maternity leave. So let's go and record that sort of information into the system itself. If I go to the statutory payments, select the statutory maternity pay details option, and it allows me to go through and enter what is the baby's due date. And I'm going to say that is on the 1st of July 2016. Has medical evidence been provided? Yes, it has. And what is the intended leave date? And if I save this information away, it prompts me, and we can see it's gone through and it's calculated all the dates associated with a statutory maternity pay. Okay, let's now say that she is taking her maternity leave. So I tick this flag here. What is the date that she's actually taking the leave? I'm selecting that date there. And I'm going through and save this particular record. We can see that this is calculating 6 weeks at £298.90 a week, giving a total of £1,793.40 for the first 6 weeks. Then there's 33 weeks at £139.58, giving a total of £4,606.14. And here's the overall total of the maternity pay for Wendy. If we run a payroll calculation, we can see the system is calculating the payments due to Wendy this pay period, taking into account her statutory maternity pay. Okay, let's now have a look at some of the reporting within the system. We've already gone through and looked at a number of printed reports. Let's have a look at another option, which is this view option. This allows me to select the payroll groups. It allows me to put in a range of criteria. So let's put the criterion to be from the 1st of Jan 2015 to the 31st of December 2015. And we're looking at the employee payment and deductions list. Let's refresh that data and it shows me all the data that matches up with that criteria range. If we look at Richard Godson, we can see the basic pay in that date range has been this value here. And if we expand this out, we can see that we've got the individual months that build up to that particular pay. And if we drill down further, we can see the individual pay elements that are on there. The beauty of these list views are that they can be exported. So for instance, if I want to take this data and copy it and extract it into Excel, I can simply cut it and I can simply paste it into Excel. And there we have that data that's available for manipulation within Excel itself. So not only are the list views powerful, they also allow you to do this link into Excel. We can create these views quick and simply. Let's create a new view. I'm going to add a new view. I'm going to call this month year analysis. And I'm going to select the calendar year, the calendar month, and I'm going to select the employee. It allows me to go through to 6 levels of analysis. In my case, I've only used 3 for this particular one. Let's save this away, and let's now run this particular view. I'm selecting both payroll groups. I'm selecting my year-month analysis from 2014 to the current date. If I go to the criteria tab, I can apply additional criteria. So, do I want payments, deductions, or both? In my case, I'm just going to select payments. I can select the payment type from, to, deduction type from, to, employee from, to, and I can also select the payroll year as well. Let's refresh this list view. And here we can see the individual years. So for 2014, I can see the total payments in 2014, and I can expand it out to see the individual months. If I go into 2015, I can again see each of the individual months and the overall total for 2015. If I select a particular month, in this case December in 2015, I can see all of the individuals that were paid and the totals they were paid. If I drill down into Richard Godson, I can see the individual breakdown, and I can drill down further to look at the payslip. If I therefore needed to reprint this payslip, I simply select this print option here. And of course, these views can be copied across to Microsoft Excel, as we saw earlier. If I look at another individual in November 2015, let's say we are choosing Larry. Here we can see the transactions for Larry. This view here is an active grid, which basically means that I can tailor this. So if I want to sort it ascending or descending, I can. If I want to hide columns or unhide columns, I can do that as well. This view of the transactions for Larry, I can push this push pin here, and in which case this view stays in place, but if I change the individual, then the view is being updated with the individual that I'm choosing. So this is a view for those individuals there. If I go through and choose the whole month, then that is now showing me all of the transactions for that month. Indeed, if I go through to the year, that shows me all of the transactions for that particular year. So this becomes quite a powerful way of extracting data, manipulating data. And as we saw earlier, this can be copied across to Excel for further analysis. Included as part of payroll is personnel. This allows you to record personal information against your employees. So if we look at an individual employee, in my case, let's go to Wendy Turner. If we look at the action button, we can see we can record a range of information for Wendy. If I look at the diary, for instance, we can see here the days that Wendy has booked off on holiday. The orange areas are those that are bank holidays, and the white areas are the weekends or non-working days. So we have the annual diary for an individual. The system allows us to go through and record absence records. So for instance, we might be recording holiday, but in this example here, we're recording compassionate leave for a bereavement. So it allows you to go through and record that type of information within the system itself. It also allows us to record contact information, allows us to record education records, training records, disciplinary records. It also keeps a history of the salary reviews for this individual. So here, for instance, we can see the starting pay for Wendy. We can see on that date she had a pay rise, and on this date there was another pay rise with a review date set to that date there. Okay, let's have a look at another application called document management and see what impact it has on personnel. On Wendy's record, we can see that there's an icon here called Documents. This means that we've got documents stored against Wendy Turner's record. If we launch the Document Manager by double-clicking this icon, we can see that there are a list of documents that are being attached to Wendy's record. So let's have a look at some of these documents. Let's have a look at the driving license, for instance. Here we can see that we've launched the scanned image of Wendy's driving license. And if we look down the right hand side, we can see that there are a whole range of options available to us. So for instance, we can print this document, we can email this document, and under the Actions menu, there's a range of options such as deleting this document or protecting it so that a password is required to access this particular document. These options down the right hand side form part of your security profile. So you determine which users have which functions available to them. In this example, I have access to all of these options. However, another user might only have the option to view the document. Let's close this document down and let's have a look at the birth certificate. We have an option to zoom into this birth certificate. And again, let's close that one down. With auto-enrollment, we can store the various auto-enrollment documents that have been sent to Wendy. So here, for instance, is the letter informing Wendy that she's going to be auto-enrolled into workplace pensions. And here are the rest of the documents stored against Wendy's record. This is a much safer way of storing information as opposed to the old method of photocopying these documents, putting them in a filing cabinet and locking that filing cabinet. These documents are stored electronically. They are encrypted, so the only people who can view these documents are the ones that have access to document management system and that they have the relevant security rights to allow them to get in and view those particular documents. Notice as well we can restrict which areas of the system particular users can get into. So storing documents forms an integral part of the payroll and personnel system. Okay, let's close this down. In conclusion, you can see that the payroll solution provides you with the ability to set up multiple companies. It also handles multiple payment frequencies of weekly, 2 weekly, 4 weekly and monthly. It handles full statutory maternity pay, statutory paternity pay and statutory sick pay. Allows you to define multiple pension schemes and assign them through to your employees. Full compliance with pensions auto-enrolment. Allows you to submit your RTI submissions online. It's used by tens of thousands of companies in the UK, from those that have less than 5 employees to those that have greater than 30,000 employees. And most importantly of all, it is easy to use. Thank you for watching this presentation. For more information, please go to pegasus.co.uk and find a partner.